Thank you, Paige. That's why we keep you around. So these subtests range from letter sound, like can you identify this letter, to can you decode 3 and 4 multisyllabic words. So that's why we keep you around. So these subtests range from letter sound, like can you identify this letter, to can you decode 3 and 4 multisyllabic words. So piggybacking off of Tuesday, a word like if I said decoding has three syllables, for example. So what we're going to do is just take a minute. I want to show you some examples of student work samples, as well as what this does. And of course it turns sideways. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. And don't you love it when you have all of your things open and they disappear? So here we go. So what this does is it starts, and there's an administration book, and the special ed teachers have those, and Susan Sickley also has a copy. And so what we do, oh, right there, Paige has it, awesome. And so what it does is it starts off with letters, and there's a scoring sheet, and there's a sheet that the students look at, and it's a sheet of the letters. And what you do is you mark. What letters do they know? How many letters out of 26? How many letter sounds do they know? Yep, right there. And then they read them and you just mark them. I will tell you what I do though, I think is really helpful, is to mark what they do instead. Like if they see the letter A and they say O, or if they see J and they say L, because those can kind of give hints as to kind of some of the common errors they might be making. And then you do sounds. What sounds do they know? And then it jumps into CVC words. So if we remember from those syllable types, this would be a closed syllable. It's one vowel followed by one or more consonants with that closed vowel sound. And notice that what it does is it does nonsense words, because this shows us, do they know the pattern? And you'll see down here that there are also words that they mark in the context of sentences, because again, we might have students that know them in context, but up here in the nonsense words don't show us this. And in the QPA book, what is considered master on the QPA book is 90% overall score. Now, I know that at Randolph last year when we were using this, there was a little bit, we changed it a little bit. The first grade went and they wanted to make it 80%. So again, that'll be a team decision if you want to keep it at 90 or move it at 80. What I like about 90, quite honestly, is it tells you, do they know it? So because we want them to be as solid in these skills as possible. And we also want to make sure that if we're doing direct instruction, that we're doing direct instruction where they need it. And I'm trying to scroll down. I love when you have to move the little screen with people all the time. And then it goes into digraphs. So you'll notice CK, NG, TH. And it moves down to, then it moves into, losing my train of thought, moving into, here we go, CVC or CVCC, which is consonant, vowel, consonant, 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 vowel, consonant. Again, notice that we still have the short vowel sounds. And so it progresses down to, you'll see silent E, our controlled vowels, advanced consonants, vowel teams. We get into 2-syllable words, 3-syllable words, 4-syllable words, prefixes and suffixes. So on these 10 tests, what happens is you give these tests and you give this test and you determine where are they struggling. Maybe you have a kiddo who, knocks it out of the park with letters in CVC. And then you come down here on digraphs and they're like a 70%. That tells you this is where we need to start. And sometimes I go ahead and I just do the next test after that to find out, is it a skill gap or are we okay to start there? Because you might have a kiddo that says, yeah, I don't know digraphs, but they know this pattern down here. So, you can have those little gap. So until you really know your students, sometimes I go ahead and I test one or two more just to make sure that I have them exactly where they need to be. Kayleen, did you have a question?
If I can unmute myself. I
Yeah.
apologize if I like blanked and you already said this.
Oh, no, you're fine.
If they don't know the nonsense word, but they can do it in context, like what is your thinking there?
What that tells me is, I think that's also one of the things it tells me is they've got it in their, they've got maybe those words in their sight vocabulary, but they don't have the pattern. And so what you could do is it could be a quick reteach because I will tell you, I used to think, why nonsense words? And the more I read and the more I delve in, there absolutely is a place because it really tells us if that pattern is solid. And so I think if they don't know them and it's very rare that they know them in nonsense words and not in the context is what I have found. Because, you know, if they can read those nonsense words, they probably get them in context. So I would say that that would be one that um, you know your students, and you know, and there's also a difference in a kiddo up here that maybe missed, you know, one or two as opposed to all of them. Maybe you found the ones they missed were the TH. So that tells you that student needs work in TH digraph, but they've got WH and all of the other ones in CK. So then I think you can look at it individually. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then what I'm going to show you, and let's see if I can get these to turn side, the other way. Oh, let's see. Wish me luck here. Where's my little turn arrow? Oh, good night. Okay, so we're gonna, if you can, we'll look at this a little bit sideways. I don't know why it's doing this, because if I do it bigger, it's only doing bigger. Does anybody know where my little turn thing is? Let's download this.
So you have to download it and then it'll give you
And
the
then
option.
upload it, okay. There we go. All right. So here's one that this was a kiddo that I was progress monitoring. And so what they had previously mastered these. So if they previously mastered them, I don't go back and test on that again. So what I did here is this kiddo had mastered these. And so what I did is I just put check marks for the ones they get, but I do write what they said instead, like instead of what, the student said what. So that tells me they're trying to read it by sight. You know what, they had 8 up here instead of have, they said head, but they got them all in context. So I put 28 out of 30. They mastered that because this was a first grader and they were using 80%. So then I went down here and I did the same thing. Like instead of gack, the student said jack, which, you know, they're using a phonics skill. This is a common one, bird instead of Brad. Which again is they're looking at those letters just in a little different order. White for with. So what this tells me is, oh, the student is looking at the beginning sound, but not paying attention to the rest of the word. But it was still mastered. So when I came down here, this student did not know any of these, so I just stopped. Let's see.
Thanks for pointing that out. Yep, totally missed it. No problem. How are you?
Thank goodness for fast downloading. So then this was one who we were starting here. And again, you'll see they had 7 out of 10 and 8 out of 11. So this kiddo was not solid. Instead of gat, they said gitch. Whip instead of wham. Pitch instead of pith. And so I always like to write that down because I think as a special education teacher, it gives you that guidance, and also for our educators, it shows when I'm working with that student, where are their specific errors and what makes them go at this level. So I was like, well, 15 out of 21, I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to try the next level just to see. So then when I came down here, they had a 5 out of 10. So I just stopped because, you know, sled for slad, fosh for fosp, lock for lunk, mape for mant, said for some, not a whole lot of pattern. So I just stopped there. So I just think it's a great habit to get in the habit of marking errors, because it really just tells you, where are there specific deficits. So once you do that test, then you will go to the placement manual. Paige, do you have that placement manual? I forgot to bring mine. Or actually, you know what happened? I left my book. I was left for work and I left my school bag at home without it. So I was like, oh, good night. So Paige, are you on, and do you have that QPA placement book?
I am on. Dr. Sawyer is making an announcement, so I missed what you just said. So if you
sorry.
That's okay.
Can you find the placement? Oh, wait, never mind. I have it right here. Never mind. I have it here. I didn't think I did. Oh, I thought I did. Can you find the placement manual, the placement place in the QPA that shows where they align?
And Robin, we have a question in the chat. It
Yes.
says that, so they have to have an 80% before moving on. So do they have to be 80% before moving on, or is that a team decision about that percentage?
I think that's a team decision. I know
Okay.
QPA's recommendation is 90% on a level to be considered proficient before moving on. And I'm one of those, I always err on, I would rather know that they know it before I move on and then have to go back. Does that make sense? But I think that could also be a building decision. I just think 90% tells us, do they really know it? And so then oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And a lot of our kids, when we give these, you definitely see their deficits because it's like 20% or 30%.
Yes.
And so it is very apparent what skills they're missing.
Yes. And you'll have some kiddos that when you are looking at theirs, you're exactly right. You're like, oh my gosh, you are still struggling with CVC. Mm-hmm. We know if they can't do, cat, hat, bat, those kinds of words, it's going to be very unlikely that they know those words, that they know those patterns. And, and if they know if they're solid on CVC, they can decode probably, 60 to 70% of the words they encounter on a daily basis. So then what will happen is you'll go to the placement manual. Did Paige find that? I don't see her on my screen.
I did. I think my screen is backwards. Are you talking about what grade level they're in and what test to start on?
Yes, like once you've done it where it shows the leveling and it says start on this lesson.
Start on this lesson. Okay, hold on.
Is there an electronic version of that? Because I don't have the manual. Is there
didn't Susan make one? I was trying to find what she sent me, but I can't find it.
And you can make a copy of that book.
Okay. Is there an electronic version of the QPA test?
Yes, and the one that I made, I took it because they have them they have like scoring sheets, individual scoring sheets for each one of those subtests, and then you're supposed to staple them together.
Which is a mess.
Yes, and so I will share with you this one. I will share with you my copy, and you can tweak it because I wanted it all on one page because I was like, I don't want 10 different sheets to be dealing with. Okay. And then like what I did is when I used it, because we also used it for progress monitoring tool, and that way, in a folder, like I would have, let's say Johnny's September 10th tests and the September 21st, the October 5th, and that way you can really see progress, and it's really exciting. And I will tell you, when you show kids their progress, they get super excited. I had fourth grader that she had moved like 3 levels in 2 weeks, and she was so excited. Wow. So it's great to share. So what Paige is showing you then is what happens is depending on where they fall, you'll go to this placement manual and it'll say start here in the kits, and it's called Startup, Spiral Up, Build Up. And what it does is it aligns specifically with the QPA, and it says this is where you were struggling, this is where to start in the program, which is awesome because it says start here. So if it was saying CVC, so Paige, let's say we had a kiddo that said that they need to start on CVC words. So where would we go in the kit?
So it's right here, task 2. I know it's backwards, but there's CVC right there. And then the third column over tells us it's going to be in startup, purple phonics, units 1 through 8. And that would be for the vowel combination. And then units 3 through 25 is the CBC.
Which is awesome. So you go pull that kit, and I know that Susan and has been working, and I know she worked with a couple of other people to get these all organized. Like I kept them in file folder. I had a file cabinet, and I just put them all in order in the file cabinet, and teachers could come and get what they needed and go back and forth. And so then you'll go and you'll pull out that little kit. So then Paige would pull out, I need the purple one for here, and here we go. And so it tells you exactly where to start teaching that targeted instruction. So does that all make sense? It's so hard when we're doing this, when we're not in person, isn't it? So it's awesome. It's prescriptive. It says this is their struggle area, and this is where to begin. So any questions on that part? And I see some things in the chat, but I can't get to the chat with the share screen. So can someone share with me questions that I'm not seeing?
Yes, so they just asked if the materials had been reorganized, and Susan did all of that. I think Dr. Delozier helped her as well. And they were located upstairs. I don't know if they got relocated. I see Katie's nodding, saying yes. They got relocated.
No, they're in room 201. Sorry, I'm in the building, so they're right up above me. They're in Michelle G's closet. They're one of the things over in her closet. So for all paras, that is where they're located, because this will be a program that I really want paras to use.
And I also, because then I wanted to give everybody background so that you knew, because I think it's important. It's like, if you're like me, I like to know why. Why am I starting here? And so if the SPED teacher is like, here's where we're going, here's why. And don't be afraid to say, hey, can I, paras, don't be afraid to say, can I see their scoring sheet? Can you tell me what kind of errors you see my kiddos that I'm working with? So that way you can be targeted as well with that student. Again, you know, like we went to that example of digraphs. Maybe the digraph they're really struggling with is just the TH. Great, we can do targeted instruction with that, because TH is kind of tricky because it can make 2 sounds. So what you'll do, it says awesome, when you go and get that kit, and you all should have a copy, should have a kit. It may not be my exact one, but they are all set up the same way, which is awesome, because this kit gives you everything that you need to know to teach a lesson. There are books, there are word cards, everything you need is in here, which is awesome. So it is ready to go. And I know that Susan and Dr. Delozier were also working on making sure that all the materials were in the kits and things like that. So you will be ready to go. So the most important part of the lesson materials is this. And what this is this is your lesson plan. And it talks through day 1. Here's what you're going to do on day 1. And there's a day 2 all the way through a day 5. So it tells you everything that you need, which is awesome. And so if you look at your day 1 on your kit, the first thing that you'll see is phonemic awareness. Now, we talked about phonemic awareness on Tuesday. And what's awesome is phonemic awareness is what? Big quiz, who can tell me? Phonemic awareness is working with what? What are we doing in that part?
No.
Sounds, awesome, exactly. So you are working with sounds. So on day 1, mine says, listen for long vowel sounds. And you'll see that this lesson that I have says long vowel digraphs. So that's connected. We know that we are working with 2 letters that make the long A sound. And so then it walks you through. Show the students the picture card train. And so if I come over here, I have picture cards that are in my set. And I have dumped all this out, and I've got my picture cards here. They're hiding. I've got my picture cards. And I've got my letter cards. So I've got everything that I need. So it tells me what materials I need, and I go from there. You're also going to then do work with sound symbol relationships. And sound symbol relationships are something that is also an element of structured literacy, which is something that we know for our kiddos that struggle. We need to be explicit with this. So in this one, it says, hold up the long A digraph freeze card so that the picture faces the students. And so you'll get those cards out. Every set has these cards, and you'll see that these ones are all the long A I have, and they're going to show backwards, but bait, chain, faint, play. So I have AI and AY digraph word cards that I will be using with my students as well. And then it walks you through the next part, which is blending sounds. And remember, we talked on Tuesday that blending sounds is something that we want to do with our kiddos. Who remembers what's really important to do when we are working with sounds with our students? What do we want to make sure that we do and that our students do?
Clip the sounds.
Very good. We want to clip our sounds. So for example, on the one that it's showing on mine, it says on the screen, it says, have students blend the words clay, brain, braid, and made using the procedures for day one, which are on day one. But we know that we're going to say clay. If we were going to blend that, you could take a sheet of paper and you could do this. And you could put them in those boxes, and you could do this. So what sound does the C make? The C makes K, the L makes O, the AY makes A, and you could blend them together this way. So we're practicing those segmenting and blending skills. And then there is a spelling component. So we know that in that spelling component, what we're working on with that is practicing the patterns of spelling words that make the long A sound, because there's a huge connection between what we read and what we spell. And the way we read is how we spell. Think about when you see kiddos spelling all the time and you're thinking, what on earth? How did they get that? A lot of times if you listen and you follow the pattern, you'll see, oh, that's because they're thinking this is how you form the AY sound. Like if you see they, the word they, which is a high frequency word, how many times have you seen they spelled THAY instead of THEY? That's a sight word, and so that one gets a little tricky. And then there's always a sight word practice. And I like the word high frequency too. But we're also going to practice some sight words. And in this one that I have, they're practicing with a poem. And so this poem over here, there's my word cards I was looking for a little bit earlier, word cards. This one has a poem that you will use with your kiddos, and you will read this poem together. And you'll notice this one says, it's too muddy for my train on this gray and rainy day, but I have a day and lots of toys. I can stay inside and play. So you'll see lots of those words with the AY sound. So, or the AY, the long A sound. So train, gray, rainy, muddy, or day rather. So they'll practice sight words in the form of a poem. Let's see. I think I got a little bit ahead there on that. So does everybody have one of these cards? So what I want you to do, and then there's also something important. It's called a decodable book. And there's a book that comes with each one of these. And they look like this. And there's usually 4 to 6 in a set. And these decodable books practice the pattern that they're working on. And so in this one, it's long A digraphs. And so you'll see we have the story. It says, this one says, it's a fun, it is fun in the sun. I can get to the top, play this game with me. And so this one works through as long A words and practice some of the other patterns. So these decodable readers are super important as well because they will practice these patterns they're learning. This is also something that, let's say you wanted to work with one student individually in that group on something, you could have the students practice whisper reading these to themselves, and they can get out, like in a classroom, they could get the whisper phones out and practice reading. Of course, everything would have to be sanitized. So maybe kids, just a thought for down the line when we are in normal school. But you could also have a student, you could also send a copy of the student, make a copy and send it to the student and have them practice that way when you're working with the student. Katie, are there questions? I see the chat is popping up. Are there some items in there?
Yes, one question was, do the sight words correlate to the grade level sight words we discussed using this year? And we're going to use the sight words from CR Success.
Yes, which is exactly the perfect thing.
But do these sight words correlate with those? Do you know?
No, they will not correlate because they are different.
Okay.
And what these are unit sight words. And so what you could do is see, well, that's going to be hard because the kids will all be at different places because it's not like every kiddo will be in the same place. So what you could do is you could also look at the unit words and determine maybe you just want to pick certain words to use and maybe adapt that so that it's kind of a combination, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And what's so hard with like high frequency words and sight words is every student's is different. What might be in my sight vocabulary might not be in someone else's. So that's kind of the tricky part.
And I was thinking it's good to introduce them to different sight words, but the mastery of sight words would be our CR Success.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Because those are the ones that, yes, you got it. Okay. I'm just trying to kind of think about how to complete this. And the sight words also have assignments with them. So you could also maybe individualize those a little bit per student, possibly too. As well. And and what's going to be as they get up into the higher kids, my guess is that it's going to be a little more individualized. When we look at startup, it's going to be the startup kits. I will tell you, the startup kit aligns when we're looking at, it starts really basic. How to form letters. What are the sounds? You're working with one letter, one sound. So
is this something preschool can use also? Because I also have my preschool PIP teacher on here.
Yes. And so I know that Amy asked that earlier. And so, on the QPA, what you could do is you could just look at letters and sounds.
Yes.
And just use letters and sounds. I know we had a first grader who, goodness gracious, she was struggling with letters and sound. She did not have all of her letters and sounds. So, one of her goals was we were trying to get for GEI to get from seriously 10 letters and 10 sounds to like 15. And I know that on my IGDs, if I'm remembering correctly, I haven't done one of those since last spring. I think there's letters and sounds on there as well. But then this could be a great progress monitoring tool.
And Ashley English, who is our PIP teacher, this would be also good for your paras to use, just as an intervention for some of those lower babies. There was another question. Kayleen said, is it possible that there are random extra books in the kits?
I'll hold them up. Like, I have this going on. These don't belong there, do they?
If they do not say on the lesson plan that they need to be in there, then no. So you know what I'm wondering if somebody did, Kayleen, if someone said, we don't know what these books are, we're going to
And put
just
them
shove
in
them in here.
Well, I grabbed a long A lesson and they are extra long A books. So I wonder if it was just a supplemental thing they did. But
And it could be a supplemental. And I know that, so if you see that happen, just let Susan know
Okay.
and she can get it, because I know like the Randolph kits, and it's really funny. Because I've had teachers for a year and a half kind of bring me things and go, oh, I found this in my room. And so it's like, great. And so I know that we have a full kit and then we have parts of different ones as well. So if it's not on the list, because it's long A, if it's not on the list, they could be unit books or they could just be misplaced. And I know Susan has been working tirelessly to update those kits and make sure they're good.
so it should be apparent based on the lesson plan folder.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the other thing that you will see, like there are, and you should have these as well. These are unit. This is like unit 15, which is what this lesson comes from. And so what this has is all the copies and things. So this has the spelling check word list. Let's see, this is going to fall out. This has practice making a word. So this is where they're practicing filling in.
These would be good things to put onto Seesaw for them to practice those skills.
And you know when we were talking about explicit instruction and just pulling out this long A, which I think is, again, we know that AY 90% of the time comes at the end of a syllable or comes in the middle of a word. We don't ever have a word that ends in AI. We know that AI is in the middle of the word. So, this also helps us, like this one helps us to know, like if the word is tray and they're putting AI, oh no, AY goes at the end. So it's also some time for some great direct instruction. And we just have to teach kids that. OI and OY is another one. OI comes at the end, OY in the middle. And so and then there's also, there's in these unit books, here's one where it's draw a picture. Here's one with make a sentence. So they can take these word cards and form sentences. So this would be one that would be cool, KB2. You could put this on Seesaw with the word cards and make these movable cards.
Because I know everybody's mindset right now is, how do I teach this remotely?
Yes.
What is this going to look like engaging the child over a computer? Because I think we all can do it pretty easily in person,
Yes.
But what is it going to look like over a computer?
And see, and I think this would be, this is a great one where you take, and this one has, I know it's hard to see, this one has that, here, walk, I, to, the, so they can make I walk to the car. But you could put these and make these little movable pieces on Seesaw. Okay, I want you to make me 2 sentences. And you could do that too with sight words or high frequency words. And maybe, here's an idea. You have a list of 10 words and you have the student read the words to you, the words they know. So you have a list of 1 through 5. 1 is the, 2 is it, 3 is this word, 4 is another word. And you say to the kiddo, I want you to read me these words. If you know these words, read them to me, which is another strategy. Did something else pop up in the chat?
Yes. Couple of questions. Ashley English just asked about running records. Would those be based on level or based on the books with the lesson? Well, I would hope the books and the lessons are at the level. So you could do either.
Yeah.
And then Paige Roberts asked, how long should it take to teach a full day's lesson? That's a good question, Paige.
And you know what? That's so funny. I hadn't even thought of that. I think I would think, depending on the nature of your kiddos, and it's funny because I don't ever remember seeing a suggested time frame in the book. I know that we had teachers using them for guided reading and for intervention time last year. So some teachers were doing them for guided reading. First grade did it for their entire grade level, and they grouped all of their first graders on the QPA. And that was an assessment that they did multiple times. And so that's how they did their grouping. So one teacher had the CVC, like in first grade, we had maybe 2 or 3 CVC groups at the beginning. And so they were using it for intervention. So I would think this could be like a, 15 to 20 minute.
Okay, we have 30-minute groups. So do you think that's too long?
You know what? I think it depends on the nature of the kiddos, quite honestly.
And we can always incorporate writing or go over the other site weights. So, and we could work on IEP goals too. So there's several things we could put with that time.
Yes. And I think part of it, at the lower levels, at the very beginning kit, it is all letters and sounds. So, there are some places I think we could absolutely supplement. If you're finding that there's common errors in letters, absolutely, pull in some other resources as well. I think writing is a great extension, like you said. Maybe you do some more work with phonemic awareness and word building and things like that. Because I know that first grade did it in intervention in 20 minutes.
Okay.
And again, too, it's thinking about the size of the groups. That might make a difference too.
Yes. And then Blackline Masters, Paige asked where to find those, and you showed one for your group or packet.
Yes.
What if it's missing from the packet? Is there a book with all of them, or somewhere we could go to get the Blackline Masters?
What I can do is I can meet somebody at Randolph, because I believe they are all in a book, but we can also make copies of these too.
Okay.
For the ones that are missing, because here's the hard part. I feel like it's very hard to find a complete kit with everything, because these have been around for a while, and so like what everybody has is a little bit different. And I know I bugged Nicole Kuhn last year multiple times during the year, going, do we have any more new kits? Because sometimes people were returning them, and they had all been, so I know the struggle was real for us at Randolph getting all of the materials, but I think between Randolph and State Street, we can get copies going of these booklets and things. So I will run out to Randolph next week and see what I have, and maybe one of you, maybe I can meet somebody, maybe Susan can meet me over at Randolph, and we can get all
And
those.
Robin, I can always meet you too. Not a problem.
Okay.
And one thing Meredith was bringing up was digitizing it, which I think is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Scanning it, putting it all in one folder, so that we make sure everybody has access to it. Because my thought is, how many kids do we have? I know we at least have 3, but what if we have 3 different groups on the same level? So I really like the idea of digitizing. So I think what we'll have to do is, as we go along, we'll have to do that because time is running out before we start school. So I think that definitely is a wonderful idea, Meredith.
Yes, and I will tell you where that tended to happen for us was, especially with the CVC words in first grade, since that's a pretty common place to fall.
Yeah.
And so it was like, but I will tell you, we also monitored our kiddos in kindergarten. And we also monitored, and we also did this at kindergarten.
How often did you monitor? Was it every 2 weeks?
What I did for kiddos that were on GEI, I did every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Now, the other thing that I did, and this is the benchmark reading levels for the district.
Yes.
And what I'll tell you, the other thing that we did, when it says in August, September, kindergartners should have 5 letters, between 0 and 5 letters, 6 and 18 sounds. We progress monitored this, and I color coded, and I can share that with, Katie, I can share that with you to share out.
Please.
Because we also monitored, are we at proficient on knowing, we know that in December, January, on F&P, proficient is a B and C on the F&P. So we also tracked the kindergarten data for letters and sounds, because we wanted to make sure that at the end, that they were learning those letters and sounds and things. So we monitored on this continuum, and I will share those with you just so you can see what they look like for how we monitored. Now, 2 weeks, I think, you know, you have kiddos that you do see progress with in 2 weeks, and you have other kiddos that you're like, oh my goodness, we're still working on this. Oh my heavens. And sometimes and you know, and it's hard because, you know, just like with syllable types and, you know, all of these things, all of these skills build onto multisyllabic words. And so we know they have to know it. And sometimes it is painful, but if you also know your kiddo. So if you have some kiddos that you say, you know what, I think I can move this kiddo to 3 weeks progress monitoring, that's okay. The reason I chose 2 was because it was for GEI. And so we wanted to make sure we had all of the required data points for GEI. And so I don't know how you've written the IEPs and how that will, if that drives how often you'll assess. But I will share with you like my QPA master, and I will tell you what's weird is every time I look at it, it's kind of changed its places a little bit, trying to fit it all. So take it and adapt it for however you want. Make notes, write on it, customize it however you need to.
That would be great, Robin. And if you just send it to me, I can make sure everybody gets that.
Great. And I will send you that, and I'm sending you something else. I'm going to make a list because if I don't, this
And
brain will
Michelle
forget.
G lives right by, it wasn't Michelle, no, Nicole Jordan lives right by Randolph. So if you want to email her, or Nicole, if you want to give Robin your number, some way to connect you to, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Nicole.
Yep, no problem.
Nicole, I could have taken it. I'll take it next time we go kayaking.
Okay.
So yeah, I can meet Nicole over there for sure. And I'm going to get you a copy of the QPA, and there's something else, Katie, but I don't remember what it was. So if there is something else, let me know. I've got my list going for you guys. So I'm kind of tweaking how we did this a little bit. It's so funny. It's either quiet or really noisy over here at Burnett, so I apologize. You never know. So if I take day 1, step 1, we know that phonemic awareness is the first step. So on this one, this was that poem I was showing you. So you're going to practice the poem together. Maybe you're going to have them read it silently, or you're going to choral read it together. You have lots of options. The one thing that we want to avoid is round robin reading. We don't want to do, Katie, you read the first line, Michelle, you read the second line, Kayleen, the third line, the fourth line, because number one, we know what they'll be doing, and they'll be trying to count, or they're trying to figure it out. And also, you know what, if I'm a kiddo and I don't know a word, but I'm going to stop and listen, I'm going to go, darn it, I don't know train. So I might read with the group and say, it's too muddy for mine. I might pause and I might be listening for what the word is. And that's okay because they're learning from their peers. Or, you know, you see a kiddo and you see they're struggling and you just do a quick reminder at the end. Remember, Michelle, that AI makes the long A sound. So, you know, it also shows you how you can do a little bit of teaching. So phonemic awareness is always our first part. Sound symbol relationships, and these are our word cards that are in here. We'll practice that part. Again, blending, we want to remember to clip those sounds. Decodable books, you can use those for independent reading or read to the teacher. Maybe you have a small group and on Zoom during your tier time, and you want to listen to 2 students read. You can put the other 3 in the waiting room, read with those 2 in the main room. Bye guys, you can head out, and then pull the other 3 in. Just remember, you always want to be in the main session, so you're always recording everything, and follow that rule of 3. 2 students and a teacher, 2 adults and a student. So you always have the rule of 3. Sight words, and then spelling practice. So what I know we went through a lot, and it's really hard online and looking through this, but one of the things that we have set at the page and I have set up is next week, we're going to have a time to get all the paraeducators together, and we're going to practice this, and you're going to get to practice teaching a lesson, and we're going to be your small group, because ideally, if we were in person, I would be the teacher, I would have you at my round table, and we would actually work through this, but it's hard when we all have different kits. So next week, we're giving paraeducators time to come in and practice teaching the lesson that you have, and we'll be your students, and you can work out those kinks, and you can practice clipping your sounds and all of those strategies. So as you're looking at your kits, I want you to just take a minute. I want you to look through that and tell me, what questions do you have? Or maybe there's a vocabulary word that's on here and you're like, oh, I don't remember what blending is, or I don't remember what decodable is, things like that. So take just a moment to look through your kit, and then feel free to type questions, or feel free just to unmute yourself and ask. I will tell you, I think what you'll find exciting is when you start seeing kids make progress on the QPA, and you're like, you can actually see the data that shows their progress, because I get excited, the kids get excited. Feel free to share with the kiddos. Guess what? Last week you didn't know CVC words, but now you know how to do that. You've added to your skills as a reader. It is so motivating to those students. Paige, are there any questions popping up in the chat?
Michelle asked just about how to use the pictures. I think you said you would show us in a bit.
Oh, show you the picture, so how to use the, let me find them. I have a big old pile here. Do you mean the word cards?
Yes.
These cards?
Oh, but they were smaller. Like I saw just a little card thing.
Oh, are you talking about these?
No, it was the same picture, but it didn't have a word on it. It just had the picture.
Oh,
Well, look at
okay.
what Kayleen's holding up.
Let me see. My piles, I'm moving my piles here.
Yeah, like what Kayleen has.
Oh, and this one does not have word cards, but if they have word cards, what you would do is they follow that pattern. So you would hold up the word. So what is this word? So like if it was long A and it was a picture of a
Train.
train. Thank you. I was like, I think of long A. Oh, what is this a picture of? What long vowel sound do you hear in that? So they're a way to reinforce the
Okay, you
pattern
don't
in
have
that
to
lesson.
spell the word or anything like that, or
You could do that. You could do, I mean, you could use those for spelling practice too. I mean, that would be something where you could fill in, and you could say, or you could even put it up like on a, in the pocket charts and say, oh, train, let's spell this word together. And you could have them practice, oh, what sound do we hear first? We hear t, we hear we hear a. So you could use them you could use them multiple ways.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Great question. Anything else in the chat?
Spell the word or anything like that, or
You could do that. You could do, I mean, you could use those for spelling practice too. I mean, that would be something where you could fill in, and you could say, or you could even put it up like on a, in the pocket charts and say, oh, train, let's spell this word together. And you could have them practice, oh, what sound do we hear first? We hear t,